Okay, so one of the more recent PragerU videos is this one: Why Girls Become Boys. I don't know what we're in for. Let's just do this.
If you know any middle or high school girls today, or if you are one yourself,
I don't know any middle or high school girls, actually.
it would not be surprising if you know someone who identifies as transgender. The latest statistics indicate that 2% of American high school students now identify as transgender.
That sounds about right. I know a few people who are transgender. None of them are in high school, though, because I'm not in high school.
And the overwhelming majority of them are teenage girls.
And the overwhelming majority are teenage girls. Okay, so they mean assigned female at birth. Let's cut through it here. That's what they mean. I could believe this because it seems, it seems like society is a lot more accepting of women. Well, let me rephrase that sentence. Okay, it seems like society is a lot more accepting of women being more exploring things a little bit more than men. Society's more accepting of women being bi than men being bi. Society's a lot more accepting of women, having a broader range of fashion. Society's a lot more accepting of women going into multiple careers or raising their kids versus men doing that. A bunch of things, a bunch of possible things.
Between 2016 and 2017 alone, the number of females seeking gender surgery in America quadrupled.
This is a different point. This is a different data point. It also kind of tracks as trans people become more accepted, so more people are going to get surgery. I would expect the number to increase, but at some point it's probably going to plateau. There's only going to be so many trans people. Most people are not trans, and plenty of trans people don't want surgery. Perfectly fine.
But if you graduated high school over a decade ago, it was unlikely that you knew anyone who was transgender.
Openly transgender. Wait. Over a decade ago?
But if you graduated high school over a decade ago...
Okay, over a decade. So I'm not part of that.
It was unlikely that you knew anyone who was transgender because, according to the Diagnostic and Statistical Manual of Mental Disorders, the condition underlying it afflicted roughly 1 in 10,000 people, or 0.01% of the population.
Seems kind of low. What do they mean by gender surgery, top surgery, bottom surgery, or just HRT? It could be all of the above. I'm not going to worry about it.
Almost none of these cases were teenage girls. In fact, before 20...
Yeah, because it wasn't acceptable for them to be open about it back then. Over a decade ago, y'all were actually saying, we're going to amend the Constitution to not allow gay marriage. I remember that with George Bush. I can imagine trans people might not want to, be advertising it quite as often,
2012, there was no scientific or medical literature discussing adolescent girls who wanted to transition to the opposite sex.
Is that true? Ah, shit. They're citing a real book. Ah, crap. I can't pull that up. The claim on the website says before 2012, there was no scientific or medical literature discussing adolescent girls who wanted to transition to the opposite sex. It almost always involved boys who began feeling it between the ages of 2 and 4. All right. Well, you know what? Let's give them that. Let's just move on.
That doesn't mean that we didn't know about transgender individuals. Gender dysphoria, the severe discomfort in one's biological sex, has been studied for nearly 100 years.
That's true. A couple things come to mind. There was research on this back in the Weimar Republic. Yeah. Before the Nazis took over and literally burned the books because they considered it degenerate. When these people talk about this, red flags come up. Second, you don't need to have gender dysphoria to be trans. It's not necessary. That's a much more modern understanding of it, though. When I was in high school, we went over sex ed and biology. They never mentioned anything about LGBT people at all. Yeah, it wasn't until I was in college when I learned that you don't need gender dysphoria to be trans. They didn't teach me that in school. I had to go to college to learn that. When you examine it more, it's like, well, that kind of makes sense. It's just something you don't think about unless you're told and unless you're affected by it. At the time, all the openly trans people that I knew did have gender dysphoria.
It almost always involved boys who began feeling it between the ages of 2 and 4 and were strong and persistent in their assertions to everyone around them that they were really girls. When a phenomenon that affects one
I don't understand the relevancy of this, though.
half of a population, boys, suddenly begins affecting the other half, girls.
Hold on. You didn't say it didn't affect girls. You said there was no research into it. Oh my god, that face. Holy shit. Hold on. Oh man. It's so like petty to do that. The pause on their faces, but I love doing it. I love it so much. What was the point? I'm distracted. I have
That
lost.
affects one half of a population, boys, suddenly begins affecting the other half, girls.
It was affecting the other half before, you just didn't have research on it. You can't say a lack of research means it's not happening, especially for a subject that up until relatively recently was considered extremely contentious. And if they did put research into it, and if there was like funding for it, people probably would have decried it as degeneracy and we're letting Satan corrupt our children or something like that. I don't know. They keep fucking saying it.
And when its age of onset shifts from preschool to adolescence, something significant is happening.
The onset hasn't been shifting. You're just like looking at specific data and ignoring the rest of it. See, this is why you can't just like specifically pick anecdotes. You can't specifically pick data. You need to do a proper meta-analysis of all the existing data to actually draw conclusions about it. She forgets the science changes. For example, there was no research on plate tectonics before the 60s. That doesn't mean it's an SJW plot. That is very true. It's a bit different social sciences, but we see the same pattern of studies in homosexuality and transgenderism. Well, the point is, it's science either way, and just because you don't have research into it just because we don't have a proper understanding of it, does not make it any less true. It just means nobody's really taken a magnifying glass and examined it closely yet. All right, let's go.
Shifts from preschool to adolescence. Something significant is happening. In 2016, Brown University public health researcher Lisa Littman began studying the sudden spike in trans identification of teenage girls.
Okay.
She concluded that peer influence and social media influence had a lot to do with this trans teen phenomenon.
Okay. People say, hey, I feel like I'm trans. Hey, this person is openly trans. That's kind of an inspiration. They're living their life openly trans, and they're happy. I can do that. That's good. This person's probably gonna say, now we're exposing the youth to degeneracy. Yeah, okay.
After all, based on parent reports, none of these girls had exhibited symptoms of gender dysphoria at the age that it typically first presents.
Yeah, because they don't know what they're looking for. You're going for parent reports? You can't trust that. Could it be possible that perhaps your definition of gender roles is a little more open for girls than it is for boys? So maybe this study is a little flawed anyway. Here's an example. Girls are allowed to wear jeans now, and it's like not considered a manly thing. You know, maybe they presented plenty of signs of this, and you just never really noticed it because you didn't think anything about it. Societal expectations for genders have changed. She has pretty eyes, but usual, they look dead. What is PragerU doing to these women? Maybe the lights in the studio are just like powered by the souls of the damned.
YouTube, Reddit, Tumblr, TikTok, and Instagram all host popular social media influencers. Today's version of Hollywood stars.
Well, we still have Hollywood stars, so.
Who insist that if you feel uncomfortable in your body, you're probably trans.
Well, I'll tell you this. Hold on, I need her name. I already forgot her name. These people are so forgettable. Abigail Shrier. Well, Abigail, I'll tell you this. Right now, I'm feeling pretty uncomfortable. This is a you thing. That ain't it. Yeah, that ain't it. All right, give me a second to process this. This is so bad. Who insists that if you feel uncomfortable in your body, you're probably trans. Okay, this is bullshit. How many of you have heard people say, like, I feel like shit, haha, or you make self-depreciating jokes about how you hate your body or you hate your life, right? It's not a trans thing. That's like everybody. Well, not me. I'm a goddamn Adonis, okay? I don't want the David Room book up for this anymore. You're probably trans? No, you're just probably uncomfortable with your body. Pretty straightforward. Lots of people are. It's not a problem. I mean, it is a problem, but, you know, it's not a trans thing. Where do they go with this?
Many promise that if you start a course of testosterone, all of your problems will go away.
No. In fact, I've heard that from bodybuilders and, like, insecure men more than trans people. Yeah, H-Bomber Guy's soy video talked about that. So like if you take like a random testosterone sample from someone, like at any given point in time, the numbers will vary wildly. If you get it from someone like who just woke up, it's probably pretty slow. But if you get it from someone after working out, it's probably a lot higher. It's like a large variation. That's why you're supposed to draw a bunch from different sample points and look at the median overall, or the average overall. And some of these bodybuilding sites are like, your testosterone's so low, you need to take some. And it's like, no, your testosterone is perfectly fine. You just had a low sample at that one particular moment. Also, I've never heard of like a trans social media influencer saying, you need to take testosterone. God, I can't even say that without getting the bodybuilder thing out of my head. Do we get an example, maybe? That would be nice.
There's every reason to believe that these girls are experiencing
We don't get an example.
real psychological pain. Rates of anxiety, depression, and instances of self-harm are all at record levels for this generation.
Yeah. You think that all this might have something to do with how people today have less economic security than any other generation? And, well, for a very long time. I think it might have something to do with better processes for diagnosing these things. These things kind of add up, you know? My generation today, as a proportion of the total wealth owned in the United States, it's lowest than any other generation has when they were my age. Think that might have something to do with it? Half of their paycheck is going to their rent, and they don't really see a way out of anything, and that all their jobs are dead-end jobs, and they're all fucking retail and service oriented, and they all suck. There's no opportunities for promotion. You're not going to get a better job working for the company. You can't go to college to get a better education because you can't fucking afford it without going into debt for the next 30, 40 years of your life. Think that might have something to do with it? No, it's trans people.
A quick fix becomes very tempting. So it doesn't take much. A YouTube video, a friend's suggestion, to get a troubled girl to buy into the fantasy that gender transition is the answer.
I've never heard this. I don't think they give a source for this. A quick fix becomes very tempting. Now that's called heroin. Yeah, check this out. A friend's suggestion. What the fuck? Teal hair, nose piercings. Whoa. Hey buddy, you want to buy some HRT? Holy shit, they somehow managed to have evidence less reliable than anecdotal evidence. I don't. You know, this isn't like an easy process to even go through. Like, the doctors ask you questions. You have to like meet a lot of criteria in order for them to like start prescribing anything to you. It's not exactly a simple, hello doctor, I would like 1 HRT please. Yes, here's your prescription. It's not easy to do any of that. You gotta keep visiting the doctor for a while. They're doing hypothetical anecdotal evidence now. Yeah, and a straw man on top of that. Let's go.
Unfortunately for these girls who do not have typical gender dysphoria,
typical gender dysphoria. Oh, so you're saying that it is.
Transition rarely offers relief.
Okay.
And it's a catastrophic mistake for psychologists, educators, and the medical establishment to rush these teens towards a solution that will almost certainly harm rather than heal.
They don't rush them to it, though. I have a strong suspicion if we Google this person, we're gonna find interesting stuff. Oh wow, she's yelling at people on Twitter. I don't see a Wikipedia page for her. She's a nobody. 22 minutes ago, Media Matters wrote, YouTube is allowing PragerU to fundraise, off encouraging parents to reject their trans kids. Abigail Shrier responds, this is a transparent lie. I have never and would never encourage parents to reject their trans-identified children. And Media Matters wanting to YouTube to censor me is pathetic. Stop trying to silence people you disagree with and stop lying. I don't know. That seems like the logical conclusion to this video that we're watching. You're not really trans.
Because here's what's not in dispute. Unnecessary medical gender transition causes irreversible damage, high risk of infertility, sexual dysfunction,
here we go,
and the creation of a permanent medical patient.
Permanent medical patient? What the fuck? Okay, I already don't like that. First off, you haven't substantiated there's a lot of unnecessary stuff going on. You've given us no data. You haven't said anything about unnecessary stuff being a widespread issue. And then you start citing high risk of infertility and sexual dysfunction. These are side effects, is what you mean. Causes irreversible damage. These are potential side effects for even people for whom it's necessary. Guess what? Every treatment has a possible side effect. That's just medicine, I'm afraid. Every doctor does an equation where they go over it with the patient and they say, okay, this is the process, this is the treatment. We believe that the benefits of this treatment outweigh the negatives of potential side effects. This is every medical procedure. This is every medication you take. This is like a normal part of medicine. If you're like prescribed something from your doctor and you ask them about side effects and they just don't mention it, that doctor's like doing a harm to you. They may say, I don't actually know, we can pull it up. Or they may say, I don't know, ask the pharmacist. The pharmacist will know. How many of you have ever had surgery before? I imagine some of you have. The surgeon talks with you before they go in and do it. And they say, I'd like to do a surgery because of these reasons. Before we do this, you got to sign off on the papers. You got to say, yeah, okay, I'm aware that this may carry a risk. That's like everyday medicine. The surgery may very well carry a risk, but you know what? It's kind of an important thing to get the bullet out of your heart. You can't leave it there. Oh, she wrote a book called Irreversible Damage. Permanent medical patient sounds suspiciously like calling a trans person disabled. Oh yeah. Okay, so what about people who take antidepressants? When you take antidepressants, normally it's long-term, and you'll have to be taking it for the rest of your life. Is that a permanent medical patient? By this definition, yeah, it is. Okay, what about people who have like a really bad accident? You're gonna have to see your doctor regularly for the rest of your life. That permanent medical patient. Okay, well, you have cancer. You're gonna have to keep going back for screens. Permanent medical patient. Why would you even bring that up? Why would you even use that phrase? If you're a teenager, you would put on puberty blockers, no surgeries. You aren't really transgender. You likely wouldn't stand it long enough or even going that far. That's another true point. Of course, when she says medical gender transition, she's casting a wide net. This is like a broad umbrella. I don't really know if she's referring to one specific process here. She seems to be hinting at hormone replacement therapy. Okay, what's next?
Tragically, we've made it far too easy for kids to take this path, long before they're ready psychologically or emotionally to make such a life-altering decision.
Yeah, kids don't go through it though. Kids get puberty blockers so they don't have to go through it. So this can be delayed until a later date when they're certain about it. It's kind of like a perfect invention, actually.
Testosterone is easily obtained by today's teens.
Is it? Damn. See, I remember back in high school, there was this guy I could get weed from. I should have asked him if he had some of the good stuff. Is it really easily obtained? I feel like the more easily obtained stuff nowadays is fentanyl. All the good stuff comes from China now. It's really easy to produce. China's a really big country, like land-wise. It's a lot more rural. Pretty easy to make. It's also easy to grow poppies there. Easier to grow opium. Don't ask me how I know that.
In Oregon, a 15-year-old can walk into a gender clinic. Yes, there are now gender clinics all over the country.
Is this a gotcha? Yes, good. Can you imagine? Yes, there are oncology boards all over the country. Yes, there are psychologists all over the country. You wouldn't say this for any other kind of treatment or healthcare. We have hospitals now.
And walk out the same day with a prescription for testosterone without her parents' permission.
No, you can't. It's not that easy. It's not same day. You gotta go there for a while. Also, you don't get the prescription at the clinic. You get it at the pharmacy. You can walk out with a prescription for it. It's a little piece of paper. Does Oregon have like a special rule about this then? Oh wow, they're citing a .gov source. That's new. Okay, Oregon.gov, minor rights, access and consent to healthcare. Not a legal document. Resource intended to provide basic information about a minor's ability to consent to healthcare services, as well as how healthcare information is treated in Oregon. Now let's take a look. Oh look, gender doesn't come up. Same day does not come up. Prescription does not come up. Medication does not come up. Hold on, let's take a look here. Okay, which services a minor can obtain without parental consent? When a parent can ask minor's health information when minor consent must be obtained before the provider can share the minor's health information. Okay. So far, this just sounds like HIPAA rules. Health providers are not allowed to share information with people unless you like sign off on them. Minors who are 15 years or older are able to consent to medical and dental services without parental consent. This includes hospital care as well as medical, dental, and optometric and surgical diagnostic care. Would include services such as dental visits, sport physicals, treatment for illnesses and injuries, x-ray services, emergency room visits, vision care, immunizations. This sounds normal so far. Family planning, sexual reproductive health. Yep, that's perfectly normal. You think you might have an STD. You want to go get an STD test without telling your parents. That's a perfectly normal thing for a teenager. I don't see anything specifically about what she said here. Yeah, HIPAA. Wow, that's it. Jesus, this PDF is such a nothing. Does she want this to specifically exclude people getting treatment at gender clinics? What? Oh my God. Okay.
Without her parents' permission.
Okay.
16-year-old girls have been able to undergo double mastectomies, the removal of both breasts, without even a therapist's note.
Okay, first off, this is a procedure that's done on people a lot of the time for plenty other health reasons. It's not related to transitioning. This surprised me to learn, but a lot of people with really large breast sizes actually have back issues. The older you get and the more you deal with it, the worse it can compound onto your back. You're working at a job that has lifting involved. You got to go through like a little bit of training for it. It's like, here's how you lift properly. Lift with your legs, not your back. If it's over 50 pounds, it's a team lift. Well, imagine doing that like every single day on your chest. It adds up over time. It hurts. Can you imagine having like back issues over that? Fuck that.
Without even a therapist's note.
I noticed that this claim didn't specifically say why, just without a therapist's note. If the surgeon says, you know, it's fine, it's fine.
Predictably, hasty gender transition. Remember, we're talking about teenagers.
Yeah. I don't normally talk about teenagers. What's on your mind, girl?
Now leading to a lot of regret. New testimonials appear on YouTube almost every week from teens who acknowledge that they made a terrible mistake and warn others not to make the same one.
Gee, congratulations, you found a couple anecdotes, or people claiming at least.
So how do you protect your daughter?
Oh, but no examples? Wow,
From being drawn into this dangerous and growing trend?
She's literally saying on Twitter, I would never encourage parents to reject their trans children. And then here we are. How do you protect your daughter from being drawn into this? Not protect your child, I would add, specifically your daughter. Hold on, let's pull that tweet up again. This is a transparent lie. I have never and would never encourage parents to reject their trans-identified children. How do you protect your daughter from being drawn into this dangerous and growing trend?
First, limit their exposure to social media as much as you can.
Oh shit, we're going full cult. We're going full abuser for this. Oh boy. I would agree you should probably limit children's exposure to social media. Not for trans issues though. What the fuck? It's just because social media is like toxic.
Several academic studies have already linked the alarming rates of anxiety and depression to young girls' punishing experience on social media, a place that often makes them feel sad, unattractive, and alone.
Yes, Abigail Shrier, tell me more about the attractiveness of teenage girls. Fucking weirdo.
Second, oppose the teaching of gender ideology in your kid's school.
There we have it. I would never encourage parents to reject their trans-identified children. Oppose the teaching of gender ideology in your kids' schools! Gender ideology is such like an incoherent phrase anyway. This is the kind of phrase that's like only used by people who are like really upset by trans people. This is not a normal thing normal humans say.
In California, gender identity education begins in kindergarten.
Good.
And proceeds through high school.
No, that's good. I never learned about this in school. I wish I did. I'm not trans or anything. It's just, I just wish I learned this. I didn't learn this till I went to college. Like the first thing that really kind of made me realize how fucked up it was for trans people was when I watched the movie Boys Don't Cry. And then I was like, oh my God, this is a real story. And after that, it was like, I want to learn more about this. Oh, that was a dark rabbit hole. It would have been nice to know about this, like, from a younger age, so I could have, like, you know, been a little more aware of what was going on around me. I cared about, you know, my LGBT friends. I just didn't quite realize the full extent of it with trans people until college, because nobody fucking told me.
The theme is that kids' gender identity is totally independent of their physical sex.
Totally independent? It can be. There's significant correlation, but correlation does not equal causation. We know this because I learned that in school too! Ha ha!
Something that only they can know. Schools can and should insist that every child be treated respectfully.
But let me cite all these other things, so we're going to marginalize trans people further.
Without sowing gender confusion in an entire student.
Gender confusion? just incoherent garbage.
Third, and most importantly, remember that a teenager is still just a teenager.
Yeah, so let them use social media. Teach them about sex and gender properly. Don't hide the truth from them. Just let them figure it out on their own.
You don't have to agree with every identity proclamation your daughter comes up with.
Oh! I'm going to remind all of us a fourth time. I have never and would never encourage parents to reject their trans-identified children. But at the same time,
you don't have to agree with every identity proclamation your daughter comes up with.
It's also really, like, disgusting and weird that she's focusing on your daughter. Think of your daughter. Doesn't care about the boys. Don't care about your son. It's not just think of the children. It's think of your daughter. That's so strange.
Knowledge of her identity will develop over time. Until then, being the adult in the relationship is the most loving thing you can do.
Ew.
I'm Abigail Shrier, author of Irreversible Damage, the transgender craze seducing our daughters.
Holy shit. What a fucking title. You're not gonna convince me. She really let it all out at the end there. Oh boy.
For Prager University. Thank you for watching this video.
Oh, this like wounded my soul a little bit. Well, that's the video. Abigail Shrier, more like Abigail Liar. I just finished editing that. That was pretty bad. Okay, some final notes here. Okay, so just because some people feel, as she put it, trans-identified, that doesn't mean they're gonna go through any surgeries or severely life-altering treatment like hormone replacement therapy, but I know that's probably a little too complex for her to deal with. And as I've mentioned before, the data is really clear. Having a very supportive family and friend group, social group around you has a massive impact on the mental health and well-being of trans people. Now, Abigail Shrier would say she does not support parents rejecting their trans kids, but she explicitly encourages you to don't go along with their identity. So what the fuck is that, huh? Anyway, that's all I've got to say. Those are the main notes. I don't have much else. Just horrible person. Trash. Thanks to the March patrons: Dios, Ian Diaby, Elsie Hupp, George, Irene Schaefer, James Paul, Jari Pulamo, Laura Day, Mellow Cheddar, QQ-S, Suzanne Hendrickson, and Xylorp on Bandcamp. Do you think her book is worth, like, stealing? Probably not. Probably not even worth my time. Was this video even worth our time? Probably not. But we did it anyway because these things still need to be said.